Awesome. Well, Keith, thank you so much for being here with us today. It's a pleasure to have you. For the audience, could you please briefly introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Keith Agoada. I'm co-founder, CEO of Producers Market.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. So for the audience, could you please briefly describe Producers Market? What's the mission and the purpose behind the company?
Our North Star is around returning more money back to farmers for their hard work. And our theory of change is to accomplish that by aligning the shared values of businesses, brands, consumers who want to receive products that are better for the environment and better for the planet and for people, and to use that as a market-driven incentive, economic incentive to help transition to better practices at the source.
That's fantastic and very clear. So thank you so much for that. Now I want to talk about something that we are all exposed to. Let's talk about supermarket. What happens in a supermarket? So in most parts of the world, it's very easy to buy fruits, to buy vegetables, to buy basically any type of food item. But the process of getting agricultural products from the producers all the way to the consumers is obviously far from simple. So first, can you tell us a little bit more about it, how it works in most countries?
Yeah, we live in a world where products move across supply chains. The complexities vary and the models vary, but product is moving from source to, let's say, retailer.
Yeah.
But the data and information does not move alongside the product. There might be a certification, there might be a bill of lading, there might be some type of indicator. But in terms of the human connectivity, the story of the product, the story of the origin, the impact information, all of this is not traveling with the product. So today we have to trust certifications, which we hope are accurate. And we have to trust that let's say the retailer, supermarket is the example, that they are, choosing high quality. But it's a lot of opaque territory there. We don't really know what's going on.
Yeah.
So that's the world today. It might look really perfect, but this is an aesthetics driven experience. It's a food safety driven experience. It's not necessarily a quality driven experience or human driven experience, which traditionally food has been prior to the era of supermarkets.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I actually agree with you. And yeah, I think that because food is abundant very often, it's cheap. I also think that we value food a little bit less when we see food in large quantities. It's very hard to put the real value that there's behind these products. And I think that's something you're trying to achieve through storytelling, through reducing intermediaries, and that leads us to the next question. So consumers and farmers couldn't be further apart on the agricultural value chain. You mentioned many times in your communications, in the way you do business as well, that the value chain is largely dominated by intermediaries. So you have the packers, you have the processors, wholesalers, importers, exporters, distributors, and finally the retailers. So first question, why are there so many intermediaries, and what are the impacts on the farmers as well as the consumers?
Right. Well, in many contexts, these roles play an important position in the supply chain because we need to achieve logistics aggregation, scale. It doesn't make sense for a supermarket to be receiving distribution from 1,000 different groups. There needs to be some form of aggregation, warehousing, organization of supply chains. And so these roles have traditionally been important in order to create a food system that gives you both quality and convenience and scale and keeps the costs down.
Yeah.
And so it's a necessary part of this complex supply chain world we live. However, the incentives have become make as much profit as you can at each step. So you have a profit maximizing function at each
Mhm.
step of the supply chain.
Mhm.
And each step doesn't necessarily want to share where it came from, because that's how they generate their profits, is
Of
by
course.
having more access to something that they can mark up value on. And that becomes their proprietary differentiator.
Yeah.
And so this is a scenario that ultimately leaves prices being pushed down and down on farmers at the source, who are price takers, not price makers. And so you have a scenario where all the corporate interests are organizing their margins and their profits, and you have the farmers. Let's see, get the glare out here. Let me see. It's a little better.
Yeah, it's great.
And you have a scenario where the farmers are losing, and consumers are not getting the transparency on their products. So if you think about something like baby food, wouldn't you love to know that your baby food is actually organic, or where it's from, or how it's processed? Or if you're really worried about pesticides when you're buying organic product,
Mhm.
wouldn't you like to know the details of that farming practice and if it's actually from an organic farm? Or if you want something that's very fresh, but it says country of origin, California or Mexico or Bolivia, and you just don't know what that means or how fresh it is or when it was harvested. There's just so many variables that I think more and more an average consumer wants to know. And the system is not set up today for them to have access to that information.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And to address these challenges, now let's talk about producers market. Let's talk about your work. How do you address these problems? And yeah, basically, how does your platform work, and what does it do?
Yeah, so we're looking at creating a collaborative network where supply chain stakeholders work alongside the producers, so that together we all benefit from a new form of commerce that allows data to travel in a vertical model, so that the downstream can have access to that impact information, to the source, the story, as a new form of added value marketing. So in essence, what we're doing is creating alignment, we're creating shared values, and through our marketing tools, Producers Market and Storybird, we're making it easy for producers to create and share content, and for the downstream supply chain stakeholders to work to share that story to their consumer. We're creating a model where groups can be incentivized to bring transparency and validation, human connection, to a commercial scale.
That's fantastic. So if I'm a consumer, and I want to buy some products that are available on your platform, I basically have access to producers' profiles. I can understand very easily where does the food come from, maybe how much time it takes for the food to come to my place. What kind of information are available for the consumer when it comes to the producer?
Yeah, so Producers Market is really a snapshot of the story, the qualitative, photos, storytelling,
Mhm.
certifications, who they are, what they do. It's today functioning as a connection tool, business to business.
Yeah.
We're going to add in the ability for consumers to buy non-perishable products more directly from consumers.
Mhm.
So that's kind of where we're going.
Yeah.
Um, and Storybird is the actual product detail page. So you can get the end-to-end traceability and information from source all the way through to you as the consumer. So that's like the dynamic sharing of the supply chain information, the story directly accessible from the product. So that's how we differentiate our two products, our two applications, and how they're used currently.
Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot for sharing. So you mentioned that already, but what kind of products do you actually sell on the platforms? You mentioned fresh products mainly, and that you're going to switch to non-perishable products. But so basically, you're working right now with producers with agriculture products, and what's the vision for the
So
future?
just to clarify, we're working with both non-perishable
Okay, okay,
and perishable products
yeah,
today,
yeah.
across over 1,000 organizations in a lot of different industries. geographies.
Okay.
But we're going to be launching the ability for non-perishable producers to sell direct to consumer.
Okay. My bad. Okay, thank you.
So
Yeah.
think
Thanks for the clarification.
coffee or packaged products. No,
Yeah,
no problem.
that's great.
Today, a lot of our producers grow, a lot of them are cooperatives or associations or just small or mid-sized brands, but we're inclusive. Some of our producers are really big and consist of, major factories and facilities. But I think we're all here united around this concept of trying to return more money to the groups who do the physical value.
Absolutely.
So that's basically the gist of our work, is to make these connections. And we're very strong in Latin America, and we have projects in all over the world. We're in 80 plus countries, profiles of producers, and we estimate that we reach over 1.5 million small farmers across the 1,000 plus organizations.
That's great. I'm sorry. I'm just stopping you here just so I can change the numbers in the script that we already wrote, because I'm not sure if they're up to date. So you said 1.5 million farmers. How many countries? You said 80? No.
80, more than 80.
More than 80.
80.
Okay, more than 80 countries. Okay, that's great. And I'm sorry. And then you mentioned how many consumers? How many consumers?
There we go.
How many? Or producers?
No, we're not selling to consumers today.
No, sorry.
1,000 organizations.
1,000 organizations who are basically
fully registered on our platform.
Yeah. Who are basically buying from the farmers, right? That's what.
No, there's 1,000 organizations who are producers. Okay,
makes sense.
Yes, and in those producer organizations, they consist of farmers in those organizations.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's great. Perfect. Thank you so much. So next question, you're obviously using storytelling to allow consumers to better understand where the food they purchase come from. But so basically you mentioned how you managed to do that, but now why is it important? Why traceability and transparency is so important, to sum it up? Because we mentioned that already, but
I think there's different areas of importance. One is on a corporate level. Corporations, for legal reasons, more and more have to have better transparency to the source and certain ingredients that are high risk of deforestation, high risk of child labor. So that's one area. Another area is the corporate demand for understanding their carbon impact. They've made carbon, targets of achieving carbon neutrality by 2030, 2040, and they need to be able to report that carbon information. And then I think the greatest driver is consumers. More and more statistics show that consumers are demanding greater access to the source. They want to be more trusting of their brands. So with digital technology and data systems, this is a new wave that hopefully will become as normal as, let's say, organic, or even bigger than organic, because it could be applied to all products. So we're hoping that this becomes a major trend for consumers, will ultimately be the biggest driver.
That's fantastic, and I obviously wish you that. Now, last angle for that interview, I want to talk about producers market impact. So again, you mentioned it, but how do you measure your impact, and what is your impact in maybe a few numbers and qualitative impact as well?
Yeah, so we've really just been working hard to build the partnership ecosystem and the network of farmers and the technology, so that we can start to leverage relationships between government, multinational nonprofits, distributors, downstream buyers, consumers, to work together in this ecosystem. And the key metrics are number of farmers that we impact. That's number one. Number two is the number of hectares or acres of land that we can help incentivize the transition to climate smart agriculture, or let's just say forms of agriculture that decrease dependence on synthetic chemical fertilizers, increasing biodiversity, soil health. that there's a metric around the amount of land converted into this. And we see that the most important metric to us is how much money is the farmer making now as compared to before. We want to achieve 100% increase for farmers. It might not be 1 year. It might take a decade. It might take a few years. But the idea is by transitioning to better practices, by diversifying the crops they're growing, by elevating the value of their goods, connecting to better markets, that over time we can increase the profitability of being a farmer and help to uplift farming as a profession.
That is absolutely fantastic. Again, thank you so much for your time today. I have one last question. Could you please describe Producers Market in 3 words?
Transparency, storytelling, and validation.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Do you have any last comments, thoughts, or advices for the audience today?
Gosh, I really don't have much advice because I've been hitting my head against the wall trying to figure out how to make this business successful. So I could say that if you have something you believe in and you're very passionate about it, then keep going. Don't give up. And it's going to take a lot of perseverance and persistence to overcome the blockages and these structures that humanity has formed around these kind of old way of doing business that are destroying the earth and not good for people. And it's going to take a coordinated effort to try to make a change here. So don't give up, and hopefully we see you on the other side.
That is fantastic. I really enjoyed this this interview. I hope that was the same for you. Thank you so much for sharing all of that, all of these insights. Obviously, I wish you luck, and maybe we can meet in person one day. I truly hope this can happen.
Absolutely, I look forward to it, and thanks for the opportunity to share and be here, and
of course,
be able to share a little bit about what we do.
Of course, my pleasure. My pleasure.